Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is the first Crash Ball podcast, and with me I have uh, Coach David Mitchley. I'm Otto Simon at Ozmaster, and he's David Mitchley at Coach Dave 93 on Axe, formerly Twitter. So if you want to go ahead and follow us there, we haven't set up anything for this podcast. We've done minimal research, at least I have. How about you, Dave?
Yeah, it's a new adventure for us. Exciting to kind of partner with our Springbok rugby broadcasts, but it's always nice to be able to thrash out your thoughts. I mean, we may make a random comment there on commentary or broadcast, and people may be thinking, but why do they believe that? Why do they think that? And this is our opportunity to add a little bit more nuance to those broadcasts. Happy to be here.
Great stuff. Okay. Yeah, so we've been talking about doing this for a very long time. And at last, the impetus was given by yourself. So I have to give you credit for that, for getting the ball rolling. Received a WhatsApp this afternoon saying it's a go. We're going to do this tonight. So here we are.
Absolutely.
First off, starting with the national team, South Africa's national team, the Springboks, of course. Um, They are playing their final Rugby World Cup warm-up game against the All Blacks on Friday night, the 25th of August at 8:30 South African time. That's GMT plus 2 hours. So I'm not sure when we will be publishing this podcast, or if we will be publishing it at all. We'll see how it goes. But we will be broadcasting that one live as well. So please join us then. I'm not even sure if this is going to go onto the regular YouTube channel where we do the live broadcasts. But anyway, there you go. So this is Wednesday, the 23rd of August, 2023, just to put things into context, into perspective. So let's start there. Is it a good idea that we're playing a warm-up game against the Kiwis? Okay. And we're back. We just had to pause there for a second. So my question to you, David, is it a good idea to play a warm-up game against the All Blacks?
I'm in two minds. I know we were discussing it on our WhatsApp group. I think
Yeah.
yes and no, and let me maybe kind of put forth my point here. So I'll say
Mm-hmm.
no for the following reasons. I say because of the risk of injuries. I, the last thing South Africa would need is to have one of our crucial players in our 33 get injured and quite seriously so close to the World Cup. I'm concerned about somebody like Siya Kolisi, like Arge Snyman. Yes, I know that it's necessary to play warm up games, but I'm just always so nervous. With Francis and Tamak being left out of the World Cup as a result of his injury for France. I just, I'm just, you know, as defending champions, you don't exactly want to go into a tournament being hamstrung. We're really trying to find a way in which we can get Andre Pollard back in the mix. So that's my reasoning for no. However, my
Mm-hmm.
reasoning for yes
Mm-hmm.
is I'm looking at Ireland playing Samoa this weekend. I'm looking at
Yeah.
the momentum leading into the first game. Yes, South Africa is playing Scotland, and take nothing away from the Scots. They're fifth in the world at the moment, and it's no accident. They beat France, no accident. Yes, it was at Murrayfield, and home field advantage is something that you can't kind of um, take for granted. But I just think that for South Africa's trajectory into the World Cup, why not
Mm-hmm.
why not New Zealand? Why not New Zealand? Because the intensity of the clash is not one that, yes, it is a friendly, and it's known as the Qatar Airways Cup, and it means nothing in the grand scheme of things. But wouldn't you want, as Jacques Nienaber and Rassie Erasmus and the rest of the coaching staff, wouldn't you want strong opposition before that Scotland game? Wouldn't you want to
Mm.
say, my guys are playing at the level that I need them to play at a World Cup final level. Not saying that New Zealand won't be there or we won't be there, or we both will be there. I just think going into the World Cup, how fantastic it is to be able to have that opportunity in the theatre of English rugby. I'm looking at England playing Fiji on Saturday. I'm thinking, but don't you want a strong opposition right before the World Cup? And to my injury point, you could get injured playing Romania. You could
Yeah.
get injured playing the USA. You could get injured playing any side. So does it really matter about injuries? I think I lean more towards let's play a solid opposition.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% there. And you actually make a good point. And it's usually against the smaller sides where the guys that are, well, I say smaller sides with all due respect, against the lower ranked teams, so shall we say. Um,
Yeah.
those guys usually go hard against the top teams because they want to prove themselves. They want to get themselves some European contracts, some URC
Absolutely.
contracts, some Super Rugby contracts. So they want to show off. They want to be dominant in those games against the higher ranked sides. So I agree. I think New Zealand will be equally cautious in their approach in terms of the injuries, but yeah, it's a full contact sport. You can twist your ankle climbing off the bus. I mean, if you're worried about things like that, you're going to live a very unhappy life overall.
Yeah.
I would say.
Risk
So
averse, yeah.
yeah. So let's give our guys a go against tough opposition. We haven't played against the New Zealand teams in the Super Rugby and the URC. With South African teams joining the URC. So we do need game time against the tougher opposition. So yes, I agree with you on that. Um, does it have to be New Zealand? Couldn't it be someone else that we have maybe get some maybe talk about confidence now. I mean, if we lose badly to New Zealand in a warm up game, what's that going to do to the mood in the change room? But yeah, it doesn't matter in the greater scheme of things. All the players know what's going on. They know they're preparing for the real thing, and they just want to get out there and stretch their legs against quality opposition. And I was thinking maybe go for like a Barbar style of rugby. Throw the ball around, do some risky moves, try some things that you might not get to try in the actual tournament. And if you lose, nobody will care. I mean, nobody remembers who we played against in the warm-up games in 2019. Everybody just remembers Siya Kolisi lifting the trophy. So that's what we're aiming for. And so, yeah, let's give it a go. And definitely no game plans that we're going to be using in the actual tournament.
Yeah, so there's the duality of it, is that it's the All Blacks who gave the Springboks their only loss, if I'm not mistaken, so far of the 2023 season, coming from that game in New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
And who better to test maybe some of your plans ahead of the World Cup against a strong opposition? Because yes, you don't want to play your cards too far away from your chest, because we know that Rassie Erasmus is a master tactician, and I know that Jacques Nienaber was coach, but we all know the impact or the influence that a guy like Rassie Erasmus will have on the change room. I just think we haven't yet seen the full strength side from the Springboks, and the closest we've gotten was that All Blacks game. If you remember what that lineup looked like, it was much of the team that played in the 2019 World Cup final, maybe a couple of changes here and there. But you might say that this team that they're playing this weekend is pretty close to where you would say is the starting 15 for that game against Scotland. I can't think of too many tweaks in the starting 15 that may come out in that game. Maybe a Jesse Creel as opposed to Kane Moody on the wing. I think maybe that's one change that I could see. And Villy Leroux starting. I just don't see too many changes ahead of that Scotland game. And this could possibly be the 15 that we see running out in that first game against France. I mean, in France, rather.
Yeah, so let's have a look at that team. Let me just check. Yeah, where's that spreadsheet? You so wonderfully keep up to date for us. And I must thank you once again, David. I'm the uninformed correspondent in this in this team. Let me
So
just check
maybe
if I
if I can
can.
just run through the squad whilst you seek it out.
Have you
So
got
it's
it
an
there?
unchanged
Yeah.
starting. I've got an unchanged
Okay.
starting front row. Kitshoff, Marks, and Malharba. So you'd probably say standard operating procedure. Malcolm Marks being as good as he has been probably deserves maybe to start. I don't know. Bongi's struggled a little bit of late, so maybe Marks is your starter. Etzebeth and Franco Mostert. In the absence of Lotte Jache, you've probably got to say that Franco Mostert is your starting lock pairing with Eben Etzebeth.
Yeah.
Maybe Archie Sneeman. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe you could make a case for him. And
Um,
yeah, I don't
I
know.
would start. I would start Argees Nyman against a team like
With
Scotland,
Eben. Okay.
or
With
maybe
Eben.
some of the lower ranked teams once again. Um, and then maybe start him with um, Franco Mostert instead of or the Argees Nyman John Klein combination, which worked quite well the other day,
Mm, mm.
and they play together at Munster, I think it is, if I'm not
Munster. Yeah,
mistaken.
Munster.
Yeah,
But
so they
but
are
we're not
teammates,
forgetting
and
Marvin. We're not forgetting Marvin Ori, are we? Because that's also an option. Not that it would be your first choice option, but certainly in terms of
ooh,
pairing, do you consider him in that mix, or is he just the fifth, the spare wheel, so to speak?
um,
Is
okay.
he a
So for this
Romania
game,
game
Marvin Ori is not on the bench,
not playing? No,
so
no.
that already tells me Marvin Ori is like he's he's going to give his heart and soul. You know,
Mhm.
I mean, it's going to be up to the coaches and that obviously, but I would say you can rotate Marvin Ori and Argees Nyman because
Okay.
um, yeah, it's a bit Lotte Jager. Let's see what Lotte Jager does because he was injured, wasn't he? So maybe the coaches are saying to Lotte Jager, let's have a look at you, what kind of form you're in at the moment. I don't watch the Japanese rugby at all, so I don't know what he was doing over there for the Panasonic Wild
Yeah.
Knights. So maybe Marvin Ori, Argees Nyman will be rotated on the bench just to give us some extra fresh legs. I mean, these are excellent problems to have. Let's just
Yeah.
say that. Nothing against Marvin Ori or
No,
Argees
not at
Nyman,
all.
but I'd like and John Klein is there. John Klein is there, right? He's going. He's
Yes.
in the
Yeah.
squad.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, that's. I wouldn't want to face any of those combinations as an opposition coach. So
Not,
that's always the key for me when you're talking about selection is who would the opposition least want to face? And if you can
mm.
give people like Lotte Jager, Argees Nyman, and even Eben Etzebeth, who's captaining the side against New Zealand, by the way, this weekend on Friday night,
Yeah.
if you can
CS
give them a
captain.
rest against the lower ranked teams in the group stages,
Yeah.
that is a big bonus. That is a huge bonus. If you've got because that means we've got three sets of lock forwards, and all of those combinations that you can think of you can pick them against any side and they'll be fine. They'll give you
Yeah.
what you
Yeah.
need. So yeah, that's why I'm not a rugby coach, and yeah, the good luck to Jock Nienaber figuring that out. But they've obviously um, they want to give Lotte Jager a run to see what he's like after his injury, and he probably won't play more than 30 minutes. They're probably going to substitute him just before halftime. That's what I would
Lutjach is
do,
not
just to
not
give him a
not in the
run.
mix.
Is he not?
No, it's Arge
What am I
Snyman and
looking at
Jean
the
Klein
wrong?
on the bench.
And
I think you might be
I'm
looking
looking at
at
the wrong team sheet.
the
Sorry.
wrong
Okay,
team
so
sheet.
Lotte
No
Jager
worries.
is already out. Okay, so Lotte Jager's
Yes,
out.
so Diacher is
Okay,
out,
but
and
still,
Police is captaining this weekend. Yeah,
Okay, so swap John Klein for Loot de Jager. So John Klein, not as experienced as all the other guys, but yeah, still
But
you've
boy,
got
he's
those.
put his hand up. Boy, has he put his hand
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
Okay, so
So
your
it's
flankers,
Etzebeth, Mostert, Klein, Snyman, and
yes,
Ori at lock,
those are your 5 locks. Yeah, yeah.
right?
Your flankers,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. So your flankers for this weekend are Sia Kolisi and Peter Steph du Toit. Duh. I mean, that's a self pick.
And yeah,
That's a side that selects itself at open and blind side.
yeah,
No flank on the bench, which means that presumably because you've got 2 lock forwards on the bench in John Klein and Erges Neyman, you then take Franco Mostert and put him at flanker when presumably Sia Kolisi goes off at 50, 60 minutes. I think that's what they've done with Erges Neyman, is to kind of slowly edge him back into competition, and then from there you say, okay, cool, you get your 80 minutes like Ergia got against Wales. Dwayne Vermeulen replacing Jasper Wiese from last week's encounter. Faf de Klerk and Mani Libbok are back again together, and again probably your first choice halfback pairing. I mean, you've got a guy like Kobus Reinach who's on the bench, which in compiling the stats for this weekend, I thought, but 26 caps for Kobus Reinach. He's such a good player, and yet he doesn't even have 30 caps. Is it a disservice by SA Rugby, or is it just injuries and he's just kind of fallen out of favor? I understand that we had five scrum halves leading into the World Cup selection for the team. It was Hendrikse, Yankees, Williams, de Klerk, and Reinach. But has Reinach, I mean, he in the last World Cup, he did the job for us. Where did he fall away?
Yeah, that's another thing that was quite perplexing. Why so many scrum halves? Because I know that they like
Italy picked 4.
They
for
like
their World Cup.
They like playing Kobus. They like moving Kobus Reinach out to the wing. Sometimes he's played there a few times. But I think what happened to Kobus Reinach was that it was Faf de Klerk's kicking game that improved, that kept him out of the side. And I can't recall if he did have any significant injuries, but I think he went and played overseas, if my memory serves, just before Rassie and Jacques Nienaber took over and said, okay, that's it. We're going to pick players from overseas. We're not going to fixate ourselves on the players that are playing Super Rugby.
Based. Okay, I see.
Am I right in saying that? I think that's what maybe caught him out for a season or two.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, so he was out of the mix for a while because he was playing in Europe. He's now playing for Montpellier.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
and it was remember when Rassie Erasmus. Do you remember at 2019 when they said, here's this squad that's going to New Zealand? I think it was 15, 16 guys.
Yeah.
And then the second squad played Australia at home. And we won that game against Australia. And then we went on to draw with New Zealand, where some guys kind of traveled between the two. And I think it was Kobus Reinach
did that
who
again
scored
this
in that
year,
game against Australia. Yes. So it was Kobus Reinach who scored against Australia in that game. So it's only since Nienaber and Erasmus came in. And I think you're right. And that's where he's kind of fallen afoul. But sure, when you have 5 scrum halves to pick from ahead of a World Cup, somebody's going to fall behind. It's unfortunate, but probably your first choice halfback pairing.
And
Mapimpi back in the mix.
And just a final thought on the scrum halves. Grant Williamson from the Sharks.
Yeah, Grant Williams. Yeah,
that's the guy that got knocked out by that Argentine fullback, right?
Yes. So Juan Cruz Malia.
He's the fastest. Apparently, he's the quickest player in the team. So Jock might say, "Listen, you can also go to wing.
Yeah.
You can play a guy like that on the wing. Yeah. And you've got a backup scrum half that's going to attend the rucks when the backline moves break down. So okay, let's move on. Mapimpi is back from injury.
Yeah. good to see Makazole Mapimpi back. I think he struggled a little bit with form at the moment. I don't know if you saw there was an advert that the Springboks are running at the moment where they're talking about who they're doing it for, who they're going
Yes.
to play for, and guys are saying for mom and dad, for their uncle and aunt, for this person and for that person, and Makazole Mapimpi tugs at the heartstrings of every Springbok fan by saying for Eben, for Eben's dad. And then in that
Yeah.
moment, they immediately show Eben Etzebeth. And if you don't like well up, I think you're not even a Springbok fan, because come on, in that for Malume Eben, I thought when I saw that, I thought, yo, let me take a moment to myself, because knowing Makazole,
Pakketroontjie.
yeah, Makazole Mapimpi's story is one that I think if anybody knew it leading up to 2019 World Cup or Chasing the Sun, if you followed that documentary,
Mm,
it was so
I
heartbreaking, man.
cried. I'll admit it.
Yeah,
I cried.
if you don't know the story, each player had to
Mm,
submit family members' photos so that it could fall on their number. The images would in that yellow of their number, the gold of their number. And Makazole Mapimpi only had photos of himself, and players were ribbing him and coaching staff ribbing him, saying, what is it that you've, why have you done this? And he said, because I don't have anyone. His mother, his
yeah.
siblings,
Yeah.
everybody had passed away in his
Everybody's
life.
passed away. Yeah.
And seeing Rassie Erasmus
Oh.
cry, and then now he mentions Eben's dad, we're like, okay,
Mm.
it was just that beautiful moment. But good to see him back. I really want him to get back to the form that he was in once upon a time.
Yeah, and
Curtly
he was
Orange,
on fire in the URC. Hey? He had a good season, and
it was just
yeah, good
incredible.
to see him back. Right. Then the center pairing,
Orange
and
on the wing.
that's definitely an experiment here with Kane and Moody. But apparently, Kane and Moody played center in high school or in his coming up as a young player. He's played at center before in his career.
Yeah, I looked at it, and it reminds me a little bit of, I think it's Rico Ioane, um,
Hmm.
who's also kind of come from that wing to center position. I believe it was Matt Gitto as well that started his career on the wing and then moved to center. I don't know about David Barry, but it's a name that kind of sticks to me, that maybe he played a couple of games on the wing and then moved to center. But I think
Yeah,
it's
I do seem to recall something like that. I'm not sure about that with David Barry, but I mean the modern way that the backline moves are structured and the players are sort of trying to bamboozle the defenders by presenting them with different images, right? So if you're a
yeah.
defender looking at the backline, you're seeing this guy move to that position, then this guy is at first receiver, then that guy comes running around the corner, then this guy cuts the line inside. I think that's once again the tactical nous of Ninaber Erasmus.
Yeah, absolutely. So Andre
So
Esterhuizen
that's
and
going to be
Caden Moody.
exciting to see. Yeah.
I think we've enjoyed watching Andre Esterhuizen come into his for his joy in crash ball, I think, and every South African watching him just really just take things on is good to see. Like you said, Kenan Moody is a bit of a dark horse, bit of a wild selection. Curtly
Mm-hmm.
Arendse is a gimme. He's a given. He's you'd love to be able to pick him and Cheslin Colby, and I think we did already in these warm ups. I don't know if it was last weekend. I don't think it was last weekend, but the weekend before,
I
where
can check
against
for you.
Argentina we picked Curtly at right wing and Cheslin at left. Or was it last week where we put Cheslin? Yeah, Cheslin was on the left and Kenan Moody on the right. And I think
Yeah, that's right.
Kanan
Against
was on
Wales.
the,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah. Caden Moody
you know,
was on the right wing against Wales and Cheslin on the left. Yes.
Curtly Arendse, his try scoring record since he came into Test rugby is just ridiculous. I mean, it's unreal. And it was 7-7 at one point, and then he scored a brace during Rugby Championship. Yeah, nothing more to say. He is as good as he is. And then
Mm.
Willemse at fullback.
And the wings are getting the ball, because there was a time when we were playing with people like Cheslin Colby and Brian Abana, and
JP
go
Peterson,
back into Springbok
Brent Ruskell.
history, JP Peterson, Brent Russell, who never got the ball. And I used to say back then, you might as well just pick a flanker
Yeah,
at wing. Then at least you can dominate the rucks. Put a fetcher
yeah,
flanker at wing. If you're not going to pass the ball in a backline move all the way to the wing, why do you have a speed merchant sitting there cooling his heels the whole game and just fielding kicks
yeah,
from the opposition and getting monstered um, by the chaser? So yeah, the wings are getting the ball, and we've got finishers at both wings for in the squad. Mapimpi, Colby, Orense, Moody. Those are guys that can sidestep you in a phone booth, as they say. So
yeah.
that's good to see. Yeah,
Let's not also forget, Otto Simon, last week, Jesse Creel making somebody 6 years his youth really put his skates on, because there was an absolute blast from the past when Jesse Creel put his skates on last weekend. And I'm
yeah.
sorry, but Jesse Creel doesn't deserve as
He's
much
got
hate as he
pace,
gets online.
and
Wow.
he also used to play wing. He's also a player that moved from wing to center. When he started at the Bulls, he was a wing. So yeah, that's good to see.
And then
Yeah, once
bench.
again, I wouldn't want to face any combination of these backline players. You're going to have to keep your wits about you and work on your defense and your cover defense, turning around and catching up to these guys when they beat you, if they beat you, if they manage to do that. Um, or you've got to go for the rush defense and just try and smother the ball before it gets to one of these guys, because and when you do that, the cross kick is on. So what are you going to do? It's like uh, one of the coaches that was interviewed before. I remember now, one of the coaches that was interviewed before playing against the Bulls of the mid 2000s said, "You know exactly what's going to happen. The question is, how are you going to stop?"
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
that's the kind of
precisely.
problem that you face with this team, I think.
Yeah. And particularly looking at the other side of the table, Mark Talia, Jordie Barrett, Riku Ioane, Will Jordan. That is an incredible midfield for the All Blacks. It's one that I think that's why they've gone for Kanan Moody at inside center. Yes, he's brilliant on the wing, but his speed compared to Kurtley Arendse, you'd probably say Kurtley's got him, beaten there. His strength in finishing, make no mistake, Kanan Moody is incredible.
Mm,
His height under the high ball, crucial. But I just
mm,
wonder if that's what they're trying to do with Kurtley Arendse, and particularly also being mindful that Makazola needs time. But Cheslin Colby took a massive hammering in the air last weekend, and still got up. He was injured
mm.
at the back end of the not the New Zealand, the European tour at the end of last year. If you remember, against Italy,
Yeah,
twinged his hamstring after scoring a try. It was after kickoff, I believe, that we picked up that one, and he kind of picked it up and said, "Oh, that doesn't feel good." I think it's good that they've still been able to say, "Okay, we've got the availability of Mapimpi and Kurtley to compete with that midfield of the All Blacks."
yeah. And on that point, did you see the ad where they referred to Cheslin as a small bookie? That was
I
quite
did. It was
funny.
brilliant, brilliant,
It's just a small
brilliant.
bookie, you know. Um, but
At your own
I mean, he's
peril.
bulked
At
up.
your own peril,
He's not a,
underestimate. Yeah,
yeah, he's not a small guy. He's not the tallest, but he's not a small guy anymore. He's really beefed up in the physical department. So yeah, when you see him in that advert, he's like bursting through that shirt that he's got on. So yeah, he's very good condition at the moment and enjoying his time in France and doing some good things there. So Damien Willemse at fullback
hmm?
with Willie Leroux on the bench. So Willie likes to go into first receiver. So I think Willie Leroux is a good impact player at fullback. Damien Willemse at fullback. That would tell me that he's going to move to fly half. They're going to take Mani Libbok off at some point during the game. Willemse moves to
Okay.
fly half and Willie comes in at the back. Right?
Okay.
So, has Damien and Mani practiced their kicking? That is the next question.
So Damien, I'm not sure. But something that Jacques Nienaber said, because I think it was 5 out of 7 from the weekend from Mani Libbok. I think it was he only missed 2 out of the 7. So yes, he missed some straight sitters in the Argentina game. I agree. However, those who saw what Mani Libbok created on the weekend, those who saw the Damien Willemse try, I think, and Jacques Nienaber said, let him score 8 tries, let him create 8 tries. Forget the kicking.
And then we don't mind.
Let him throw 5 pointers, because that pass to find Damien Willemse, I know there was another instance early in the game, but to find Damien Willemse when he did, magic. And the also commentary will always talk about Champompo Champizi. That was champagne rugby if there ever was it, because wow. If you didn't see it, go look for the highlights online, because that was just the moment he held it for half a second and then released. Willemse was in acres of space. And yes, I do agree with everybody that you need to kick poles to win a World Cup. It was precisely what we saw in 2007, where Percy Montgomery single-handedly won South Africa the World Cup final with his kicking. The same for Handré Pollard in the game against Wales in 2019. We saw that.
The
but
pressure
if you
kick.
can unlock defenses, you can unlock defenses. Remember, that Wales side heavily diminished. So I don't want to kind of say it's going to happen with everybody, but it's also some members that beat England a couple of weeks prior. So take it with a pinch of salt. Yes, South Africa demolished that Wales side. Yes, that Wales side lost over 100 caps in the lead up in losing Dan Biggar, Cuthbert. Those are big names of Welsh rugby.
Yeah.
But still, these guys are national team players for Wales. And take nothing away from Mani Libbok, because in that moment, if you're able to make the right decision, that wins your World Cup. Decision making, I think, in the crucial moments, whether you tap and go when you're 6 or 7 meters out, do you kick for the corner and try and maul it over? Do you then say, let's throw it back into a pocket? We're not going to get over. The defense is too good. Let's go for the 3 points through a drop goal. It's those decision making moments that, yes, you can say, Sia, what do you think? Dwayne, what do you think? Eben, what do you think? These are guys that have led the team. But if Mani comes up and says, let's take a scrum, I have a feeling here that we're going to open their defense up and stretch them if we take a scrum. Or let's kick for the corner and watch me, because I'm going to take this in the pocket out of a maul and I'm going to cross kick and I'm going to find Kirtley Orenson. He's going to dot it down. It's in those moments where he backs himself. And yes, Willie Leroux's try assist ratio is through the roof at the moment. I think for the last decade, the highest try assist for the Springboks. But this is how Mani's going to learn. This is how Mani's going to find his feet in international rugby. Because, if you look at the stats from URC, Mani is on top of nearly every single statistic.
Yes.
Mani, yes, his goal kicking is struggled. But it's test match rugby. Not everybody walks in and says, you know what, I'm going to smash it in every element of my game. But it's not a mistake that Mani is there.
No, not at all. And I still maintain Mani Libbok just needs a sports psychologist. He needs a good couple of sessions with a great sports psychologist, because he was deadly accurate for the Stormers for the past 2-3 years. I mean, in those close games, he did it for the Stormers. He's got the talent. He's got the ability. He can kick the ball over the poles from anywhere in the half in that horrible blue and white striped jersey. He needs to just get in out of his own way in the green and gold, because that's not how Mani Libbok kicks. If you're one of those people that only watch the Springbok games and you only um, you don't watch all the URC games, you only watch the finals and that kind of thing. Like you said, go and look at the statistics. The numbers don't lie. He is extremely accurate kicker, and he made himself that. He didn't start out as a good kicker. He was like almost followed the path of Bornay Steyn, where he didn't start as a good kicking fly off the tee. He started as a very exciting running fly off, and he kept working at his kicking game. And for the Stormers, you can bet your house that Mani's going to slot the penalties. I just hope that he's got the support that he needs around him to just, I don't know how. I'm somebody who overthinks everything. I'm bad. I'm not a street smart person, so I need to learn that skill as well. Just to get out of your own way, get out of your own head. When you're on that tee box with the lake in front of you and the tee and the green on the other side of this, the water isn't there. The crowd is only shouting at you because they think you're going to miss. That kind of thing. All those techniques that you need to calm yourself down and to trust your own ability and just execute. I think if he gets the right support around him, the right kind of voices in his ear, he'll do it. He'll be there. I trust that he can find that. And Damian Willemse needs to step up because he's also a very good place kicker. He's got two drop goals, 4 conversions, 4 penalties, and 2 drop goals in 32 games. And thanks once again for that stats back.
Cool.
This is not me regurgitating this from memory. This is David that gave me the stats. So thank you.
We're a team here. We're a team.
So then, that's a very worrying thing for South African fan, because we're so used to these Springbok teams that have the Mornay Steyn, the Pollards that can win you the game with the penalty, with Percy Montgomery, and as far back as you can go, all the way back to Frick de Pre, who can just kick the ball from anywhere, and it doesn't matter if we need the 3 points, just pass the ball to Nas, and he slots it over, no problem. So it was upsetting to see the reaction, and I hope Mani stayed off Twitter, of X. And didn't read the comments and just keeps himself away from all the negativity that burst, that pimple of negativity that burst all over the Springbok team and Mani because of his kicking, because he missed 2 out of 7 kicks. So let's see. And I mean, that's going to be interesting. I just don't want to see a game where we have to rely on Faf de Klerk or Cheslin Colby to win it with the conversion from the sideline. And but once again, like you said, we want to use our backline. This team doesn't play 10-man rugby, and they can switch between those 2 tactics. They can, when it's on, they can activate the backline. Our wingers are getting the ball once again, so that's good. I would rather have a fly half that gives the rest of the backline an opportunity than somebody who just kicks and like I said, you might as well just pick a bunch of flankers outside the 10, because they're never going to get the ball when they pass. When they get the pass, they're just going to crash. It's just going to be one pass ruck, and that's very easy to defend against. So with this kind of tactic where you can switch between the classic Springbok 10-man, grind you down, harde gat word sagte gat, and then switch that over to a backline that's got the talent to go and score from anywhere. If your players, if your defenders are out of position, you're conceding 5 points, maybe 7, maybe.
Yeah.
But
So
right.
I
So
want
the
to ask
bench.
the question.
Yeah.
Before we get into the bench, I want to ask the question, and maybe it's the controversial question, but it's the question on everybody's lips. Yes, Jacques Ninoba has said we are not taking somebody just to have them fake an injury so that we can get somebody else in.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's
Is
go
there
there.
a small hope? Is there a small hope, even if it is minuscule? Is there a small hope for Handré Pollard to go to the World Cup?
I would have to go and check his
should
stats.
We hold out hope?
What
should we hold
what
out
has he
hope?
been doing in Japan?
Well, the thing is, let's take away his domestic rugby. Handré Pollard is back to full contact practice. We've seen it in the Springbok photos on social media this week, and they've confirmed it. Do we hope for a Handré Pollard return, or do we just say? And I'm not saying he has to start. I look that there's understandably some plans and politics in place that you can't just pull money out when you've said you are my starting man. Do you think fans are secretly fingers crossed somebody gets a bit of a niggle that doesn't let them go to the World Cup, and presumably the culling area is the scrum offs, like Italy have picked 4. I don't know. Anyway, they've also only picked 2 centers. I don't know what's going on with Italy, but never mind. You pick 2 centers and 4. Okay, but back to the point. Is there hope? Let me put it down to this. Is there hope for Handré Pollard 2023 World Cup? Yes or no?
I would say let the cards fall where they may. Okay. You're not gonna. That's a if this then that. That's like the cricket team. If this team can beat that team, and then we can get this many runs, and
Bafana maths.
He's not fit. He was injured for too long. He's not in the squad. He's on the backup. What a nice guy to have if somebody does get injured.
Sure. 100%.
And injuries will be inevitable. I will be very surprised if none of the backup players get a call up to go, and somebody gets injured and they need to swap somebody in. So let's just, for me, I mean, I always say this. When that guy pulls that green and gold jersey over his head with a number 10 on his back, he's the Springbok number 10. He's the one that we support, right?
Yeah.
Hoping that somebody gets injured so that some other guy that you like because he looks like you or whatever. No, that's not how it works. And if he's been out for so long and he hasn't been playing top rugby, he hasn't been playing for the Springboks. The same thing with Franco Mostert is getting a run now. Who's the other guy that came back from injury?
Oxenchair.
Yeah, anyway.
Oxenchair, he was out for the Rugby Championship.
Yeah. So,
Nyakane is another one.
Honestly, what a great replacement if we need him. But really, no. Don't hope for somebody to get injured and then we have to go back to Pollard. I think we've got enough talent, and who's to say what he's going to do when he does come back? We know he's got the BMT, and he can play in those pressure moments and slot those kicks when he needs to. But he might come back and then just have an awful first match, and he has had some horrible matches where he's missed half the kicks, and he's a human being. He's not the answer to all the questions. So let's let the cards fall where they may. What will be, and if Pollard gets into the team, 99 out of 100, he's going to have awesome performances with the boot at least. So I think that's that. I think if you're thinking like that, then all I would say is very nice replacement, very nice backup player, because there were times in the history of the Springboks where we had that one guy, and if he gets injured, we are screwed. So let's enjoy the fact that we have Andre Pollard
Yeah.
in the wings, and if we need him, he'll be there. Yeah.
The depth. Yeah, absolutely. So the Springboks going up one ranking place this week after their victory over Wales. You know, with things being the way that they have, there was that stat about in our WhatsApp group about the fifth placed team ending up in the final, and we kind of mentioned, Scotland. Boy, oh boy, would that be the upset of the century. Do ranking points matter, or are they a nice way to indicate who's strong going into a tournament?
They matter when the draws get done, when the groups get selected for the World Cup. Yeah, I think that's it. Because there's no, like in Test cricket, they introduced that scepter thing, that you get when you're the top ranked team. But other than that, the mace, that's it. That stick. So, I think it's important in terms of, getting into a pool where you might be facing, because it's like with the draw in tennis, right? It's like the top ranked team will get the 9th ranked team, and then the 8th ranked team after that, and 8th after that, and so if you are the top ranked team when they select the groups for the World Cup, I think that's the only scenario where it really pays to be the top team or to be one of the top teams. And if you are like us and you're always floating around 3 or 4, you're always playing against, what have we got? Scotland, we've got Tonga again.
Romania.
We always seem to be Romania.
Ireland.
Okay, that's okay. Ireland.
Ireland.
Yeah.
So we've got number 1 in ourselves. Sorry, not in ourselves, in Ireland.
Yeah.
You've got Scotland, who are in 5th, and then us in 3rd. It's ridiculous where you have 1, 3, and 5 in the same group. Now, sure, Scotland have had a fantastic run of late. But look at Wales. Wales have Australia in their group. It's like, how? Yes, I understand to your point about for the draw, but boy, oh boy, did we get the group of death. I wouldn't want to be a Romanian coach at the moment, because to go into that World Cup, you're just having fun, because you're going to collect 100 from somebody.
And you can spoil somebody's party for real.
Fair enough.
You really could. Fair point. And some of those guys, I don't think we have teams in the Rugby World Cup where it's semi-professional anymore, right? Maybe Namibia.
Well, Portugal. Remember, Portugal are back.
Portugal.
Portugal seem to love French World Cups, because the last time there were a bunch of farmers that really. There's a whole long video online about it, about this, Portuguese rugby and how those. Yes, they were joked about as farmers, but these were semi-pro guys that came out and sang the national anthem with pure passion, and you cannot fault them for their love of rugby, but it has inspired the next generation, and they're actually playing very decent tier 2 rugby at the moment, Portugal. So, I just that.
But my point is, that's it. It's starting to become a team like Romania could be a huge problem. It's still there's nobody that you can say, you could say, I'll put $50 on Romania conceding 100 points against one of those sides, against us, against Scotland or Ireland, if they have a bad day. But they can scare you. I mean, look what happened to us in Brighton.
In 2015, yes.
Remember that? Yeah. I was, my wife had her kitchen tea, and I was watching that game in a bar, and everybody was handing out Springboky shooters and celebrating our victory. And the clock just kept ticking, and I was just watching, and I was just like, no, not over yet. They're on our try line, and there you go. We lost against Japan. So, I mean, Romania will be lying in wait. They will be ambush predators in this group.
Yeah, and I think to presume that South Africa and Ireland will just run out of the group, don't be so certain. I want to just touch on, if we can, in looking at the top 10 rankings. You've got the powerhouses of world rugby in New Zealand. Credit to them, they've overtaken France, as have we, based on last weekend's result. We're not far away from France. 89.22 is where France are, and 89.37 for the Springboks. But I want to talk about
just on that point, we'll work on our graphic skills. When we edit this, we might just add in some graphics. Okay.
No worries. Beautiful.
if we edit this.
I want to your point about Japan in 2015. Yes, Australia haven't had the best run of late. They haven't been winning as convincingly, or at all in some cases, as they would like. Never underestimate Eddie Jones heading into a World Cup. I think do so at your own peril, because somehow. Yes, I don't know if anybody's seen one of our own broadcasters, Ken Borland, at Rugby Championship, joked and said, "Oh, aren't you happy that that was the B team?" And you got a snarky response from Eddie Jones. And recently we saw Eddie Jones saying, "Well, I've had enough."
Don't be a smart ass, mate. Don't be a smart ass. Don't be a smart ass.
Yeah. and then he goes on to say, at a press conference at the airport recently, you're all negative to the Australian journos. And yes, the Australian journos have a point. There's not much to be positive. But the way that Eddie Jones goes into World Cup, the man has been these advertising runs where, I don't know if you've seen, there's an Australian ad where it's like, there's a guy at the door says he's going to win the World Cup with Australia. And then the dad's like, "Are you sure? We're like 7th in the world. Are you mad?" Not that Australia will win. Don't put your money on Australia winning. I think if you do and you win, all credit to you. But I don't think you want to write off an Australian side that just said to Michael Hooper, "You've captained during Rugby Championship, out." Quade Cooper, "We picked you during Rugby Championship, out."
Yeah. No, Eddie Jones isn't afraid to make changes and send strong messages. So, let's just pause for a second. I need to take a break. Okay, and we're back. So, that's the Springboks. We can maybe quickly glance at the bench of the Springboks.
Yeah.
Because we didn't. Yeah.
So,
right.
If I don't, do you want to run through it, or would you like me to?
Yeah, so Bonge Mbonambi, Oxenche, and Trevor Nyakane. I mean, once again, after we don't have New Zealand's squad yet, but
we do.
Very nice bomb squad there. Oh, I don't have it on the spreadsheet. Yeah,
I've got it on WhatsApp if you're there with me.
Okay. No, that's fine. Jean Klein, RG Snyman, the locks that we spoke about extensively, getting ready to wow us with their power game, the two Munster teammates. Marco van Staden is the loose forward replacement on the bench for Friday night. And then, as we mentioned, Kobus Reinach and Willem. So we actually did talk a bit about the bench. Any other thoughts?
I'm glad that Vincent Koch is getting a bit of a rest. I think he's worked hard. I'd like to see him get a start, though, maybe at some point, but it's still time.
Sorry, I didn't catch that. Who did you say? Getting a rest?
Vincent Koch.
Ah, yes. Yeah. And once again, just like we talked about with the fly-offs, there's enough players to rotate. And we don't have a single point of failure in any position in this squad, I would say. So very happy with the preparation. The way that the players have been, I remember always talking about this when people mentioned, like, Why are they picking this guy? Why are they picking that guy? Bowden Barrett started at number 10 for the All Blacks for the
Yeah.
first time, and I think he had like 25 something caps
Yes.
when he got the 10 jersey for the first time, and that's what you want. You want to lead players in like that, bring them in off the bench, put him at fullback, you know, get him to that spot where when he gets that first chance to start in his own chosen position, in his favorite position, he's already done. All the nerves are gone. He's already played at the stadium before. He's already played against these guys before. You know, all of that is gone. You're not picking a fly half off the bench in his and giving him his uh, sixth cap. You know, with the 10 on his
Yeah.
back. So that's very nice planning and succession planning and rotation by the coaches for the Springbok team, and for that I'll give them a round of applause. Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Right. Moving on. So we said we are going to talk about the other warm up matches, but I didn't. Let's just quickly have a glance here. So England, Fiji, Italy, Japan is going to be an interesting game. I think I might watch that one.
Yeah.
Scotland, Georgia. That we might watch just to see what we're going to be up against. Ireland and Samoa. Ireland is going to be, that's going to be a tough game. That's going to be squeaky bum time. And then Spain, Argentina. It starts the same time as Ireland and Samoa, so I'll watch the replay of that. Any thoughts? So England, Fiji, Italy, Japan, Scotland, Georgia, Ireland, Samoa, Spain, Argentina. Obviously, the New
So
Zealand Springbok game is the box office one that everybody's
yeah,
going to watch.
absolutely. I think it's going to be interesting to see how England play after the Vunipola and Farrell ruling this week. I think they're playing the day after the Springboks and the All Blacks at the same
Yep.
venue, so I think that's going to be an interesting one. I come back to my point at the top of the show: value of opposition. It's the same as if we talk about a cricketer scoring runs, and you say, but value of runs. Does he score hundreds against average bowlers, or is he scoring hundreds against great guys? Are they testing
Or on a
themselves
difficult
seriously?
wicket. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you testing yourself, or are you kind of giving yourself the easy run? Because remember that first game of Rugby World Cup is Yaku paper blowing. Shameless pun for a South African, but it's France, New Zealand. Okay. And if you remember World Cups past with France and New Zealand, these two sides,
Allez les Bleus!
they don't leave anything behind. There's nothing just left casually in the change room. These sides will go hard at each other. Are you going to be mentally up for it as France while your opposition are playing only one position ahead of you in the rankings? I don't know.
Yeah. France are playing Australia, though.
Yes,
on Sunday.
Yeah. Take nothing away from that game. But just look, we know that there's a chance that Springboks may run into the All Blacks in the next round. We may be top of the log, they may be second, or vice versa. But how good would it be to see a France-Ireland game this weekend? The injury risk is the same.
That's
value of opposition.
And and in that case, looking at these fixtures, I would say we're lucky to play New Zealand on Friday. That's a good warm-up game. It doesn't matter, and we said injuries will happen. It's a full contact sport. That's inevitable. Mentioned that very surprised if nobody gets injured before or during the pool stages at least. So that's I'll go ahead and watch the England Fiji game. I'd like to watch Ireland play, and I'd like to watch France Australia. That's going to be the the games that I'm going to be looking out for. Right. So that's that for the men's World Cup rugby, of course. Next up, the Springbok Women. They've got some nice games coming up, and the women's first division competition is getting some exposure, which is great. So let's see. The Springbok Women are playing at the Dani Craven Stadium while the page loads, and they will be playing against Scotland. Scotland at the Dani Craven Stadium in Stellenbosch, in Stellenbosch, at 4:30 in the afternoon on the 13th of October. After that, Italy at the Athlone Stadium in Cape Town on the 20th, and then the week after that, the 27th, they will be playing against Samoa. So the Springbok women have played 3-1-3 this year, and they've absolutely demolished everyone in their path so far this year. They haven't played real. This was an African conference kind of competition. They played against Madagascar, Kenya, and Cameroon.
Yeah.
And they whitewashed Cameroon and Kenya, and they scored 79-8 against Madagascar. So far in 2023, this was in May. Completely missed this. Nobody broadcast this, as far as I could tell. So apologies to the Springbok ladies. We should have covered those games, strictly speaking. But yeah,
I want to ask the question because we want to develop the ladies' game. We want to say there's value in young girls taking the opportunity to play rugby at a young age so that they can develop into rugby players that can make a living from it.
Yeah.
Do we not do ourselves? Yes, I understand that maybe we have obligations at Africa competitions, but if we're playing Scotland, if we're playing Italy, and we're playing Samoa, okay, in the next round, are we doing ourselves a service by playing, with the greatest respect to Cameroon, Madagascar, and
they also
and
need
Kenya.
to develop those countries. Those countries also want to play against quality opposition.
But is there value in a 71-point victory for a side?
No.
So again, my point about New Zealand, quality of opposition.
Yeah.
The games against Spain were incredible. Did they set us up for the World Cup? I don't know. And that's the question I want to ask.
No, but we ran into France and England. We ran into a grinder, the ladies in that Women's World Cup a couple of years ago. What was it, last year? It was supposed to be in 2021, right? And then they moved it.
Yeah, it was
right?
pushed to 2022. Yeah. We brought you those games.
Yeah, so it's
in the morning.
So in women's rugby, I would say you have the same scenario that you have in women's cricket, where it's basically Australia and England. And in women's rugby, you could say France, New Zealand as well. And everybody else is just chasing their tails. Everybody else is sort of trying to catch up. And our women's team had some flashes of brilliance against France. And in those games against Spain, they really started to look dangerous and, more professional. Less knock-ons, good scrum technique, good line-out technique, good set plays, that kind of thing, right? So starting to show that there's something there. And I think the exposure that the ladies, because it's all about, if nobody's watching, nobody cares, right? If there's no, how can I put this? Like once again, the cricketers that say those 4-day games that they play when nobody's watching are the most stressful, because the selectors are only looking at the stats. They don't see how tough it was to bowl on that wicket, to bat against those bowlers. They, if the ladies aren't playing and lots of people are watching, then that's almost more stressful, because all you see is, okay, we beat this team, what was it, 79-8. Maybe the halftime score was 23-8, we
Yeah.
don't know,
Yeah.
you know. Against Kenya, 48-0. Maybe the halftime score was 48-0, and Kenya came back in the second half and shut us out, and we couldn't, it was a proper test match. How would you know?
Yeah.
So it's good that the ladies are getting more eyes on them. Louis Kuhn is the coach at the moment. Blue Bulls man, Louis Kuhn. So yeah, let's see what happens against Scotland and Italy, and Samoa in October, and we're looking forward to that. So if you are in the Cape Town area, get some tickets there. Go and watch the ladies, because they really, I mean, in those games against England and France that we broadcast, they showed some ability there. They weren't completely walked over. England only really started scoring in the second half,
Yeah.
when we sort of fell apart, if I remember correctly. And France as well. We gave them a good go for periods of the match. So that's very encouraging. So I'm looking at the sarugby.co.za website. Go there, go and check out the ladies team. Make sure that you mark your calendar, and give the broadcasters some gas if they don't broadcast the matches. That also helps. And we saw that with our coverage of the ladies cricket matches. When we started doing broadcasts at the ground with Pitch Vision and those guys, the broadcasters seemed to wake up. I don't know if that was a coincidence, but I'd like to think we had something to do with that. So that's always good. And FNB is the title sponsor, so shout out to them. They're sponsoring the ladies team along with the men's team. They've got the ASICS kit as well, kit sponsor. Looking at the team photograph here, so good on them for supporting the men and women Springbok teams.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
it was yeah.
So maybe we can kind of take the Louis Kuhn is the Blue Bulls man, and have a look at the women's Premier Division, the domestic competition for the ladies.
Yep.
The Bulls are clearly doing something right, because they are so far ahead of everybody else. If you're not able to find the logs, we have the Bulls Daisies on 50 points, DHL Western Province on 37, Border Ladies on 32, Chelsea Sharks 16, Lions 16, Boerland Damas on 12, and EP Kings on 8. But 50 to 37, it's a significant gap. Is it the culture within that northern Gauteng region that kind of promotes ladies, more ladies playing rugby, or are they doing something right, and what could that be?
Well, your guess is as good as mine. There's been some coverage of the ladies rugby matches on the broadcaster, the monopoly broadcaster, we'll call them. It's difficult to follow these matches, but apparently, according to SuperSport, the Bulls Daisies have reached the final of the Women's Premier Division for the first time in 13 years. So there is obviously some kind of rebuilding going on there.
Yeah.
And they are playing in the final against the DHL Western Province ladies. And that apparently contains most of the Springbok women, because Louis Kuhn has assembled his first training camp for the ladies now, and he's waiting on most of his players to finish that final, which is going to be played on Saturday at 3 o'clock at Loftus Versfeld. Entry is free if you are in the Pretoria area and you are able to attend. I won't be there. I'm just found out about this afternoon when we started prepping for this podcast that we're doing for the first time. So apologies for that. But yeah, go ahead and hopefully we'll get the podcast onto the internet somewhere before that game kicks off. So Loftus Versfeld, 3 o'clock, 26 August 2023. Go and support the Bulls versus the Western Province, the Aapstad teen Slaapstad, the Bulls versus the Quaggas. And go and show your colors there and support the ladies' game, because if we see what's happening with the women's game in cricket, if the supporters are there, if people are at the ground, if people are watching, if people are demanding that the games be broadcast, the sponsors will wake up, and the people will lead, and the rest will follow. So yeah, that's going to be a win for the Bulls Daisies, I think. Of course, I think that. But yeah, difficult to follow. We'll do our best. We're going to get into some other rugby dark holes here that nobody seems to pay attention to, and we'll try and highlight those for you as well. And then getting to know the Springbok ladies was quite a challenge when we first broadcast them. I didn't recognize a lot of the names that were mentioned in the camp that's starting now. They've also got a lot of injuries, and then they're building up to the women's 15 competition, which is some kind of international thing that I'm not really sure about. So once again, apologies for that. We will make sure that we're on point next time and have some more information for you. We're trying to set ourselves up as sort of content aggregators, right, for SA Rugby, for the whole spectrum, all the way down to schools level. But it proved to be a bit of a challenge. We'll have to contact some people, and we'll definitely get some people on here for some interviews and to talk us through what's going on, so we can highlight that. And that's going to be a lot of fun to learn about the SA women's rugby scene and what it's like. Any other words on the Springbok women?
No, I'm glad that we're playing some serious opposition. Like I said, great respect to the rest of the African teams, but I think it's just a step up. I think, like you mentioned, it's closer. The day of professional women's rugby is coming. Whenever that is
it's already in Europe. Yeah, yes, there's a few
I'm
players
saying within the South African context.
Yeah.
So yes, that day is coming, because we saw it this week in the ladies' cricket game that there is a domestic cricket competition that's coming for the ladies. That will be, the money's there, and that's always the challenge is financing. But the more people drive it, because women's sport is expanding beyond what any of us would have thought 5-10 years ago. But support these ladies, because they want to represent you when they go out with the green and gold. They are Springboks, and so they want to give their best performance. So yeah, keep supporting, keep following, and if you know any Springbok ladies players, tell them to tweet at
slide into our DMs.
We'd love to be able to chat to you. Any coaches, administrators, we're certainly open for your viewing. But you wanted to chat about some club rugby that's coming to a conclusion this time of the year.
Yes. Okay, so before we go there, I just want to talk a little bit about we had some comments on one of our WhatsApp groups about transformation in the Currie Cup final. So we can maybe just talk a little bit about that. I mean, it is a thorny issue. I don't have the solutions, but we've talked about this a lot on the cricket side as well. I'll just say this: the Oh my goodness, you just pointed out that I have the wrong year for the Carlton Cup fixtures. Okay, but
No
never
worries.
mind. We'll sort that out.
Transformation.
All
Let's
right.
chat about that.
Yeah. So rugby is a full contact sport, and you have to. I mean, I'll take myself as an example, right? Not that I'm transformation kind of player or whatever. I might be. I don't know. I'm still researching my genealogy, but um, I was invited to play for a club team when I was in my early 30s, and I had to decline because I didn't have medical aid at the time, and I had two young daughters. So
Hmm.
um, even worse than cricket, um, where the kit is expensive. It's expensive to maintain a pitch. Um, if you get injured in a rugby match, uh, that's a that's a big deal. You know,
Hmm.
it's it isn't like um, you need equipment, you need proper training, you need to be playing the game for a long time. You can't walk into a MMA fight at 33, and the last time you did some katas was in karate class in when you were 12 years old. It's something that needs to happen from a young age.
Yeah.
Um, so when you're talking about transformation in rugby, it is difficult because you have to create opportunities for players when they are young. And when you decide to go the route of rugby, the risk of injury is always there. The risk of horrific injuries is certainly ever present. And
Hmm.
as you grow up, um, the opportunities become, the teams that you can play for become less and less. And so it's very difficult to make that commitment to a sport like rugby in any situation. So, I was talking about, um, well, my daughter, once again, using myself as an example, just to sort of set the scene, right? So my daughter plays hockey. She was invited to come and do trials for the Northern Transvaal side, but there was no support from anybody except the parents. So I said to my wife, Carla, you know, what ends up happening is those kids that are playing for Northern Transvaal are the kids whose parents are able to take them to those trials. And out of those kids, the team will be picked, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You get what I'm saying. Can
Hmm.
you pick up what I'm putting down? So
Yeah.
it's about creating opportunities for players from a young age. And I mentioned this on our WhatsApp group today as well. The top schools here in Pretoria will go out and try and recruit players of color from the Western Cape and the Eastern Cape because the schools that are here that are English speaking schools don't play rugby.
Yeah.
If they do, they've got like I don't want to say the second choice athletes. We went to Sutherland High School the other day for a warm up game, once again for my daughter's hockey team. Their hockey team were proper athletes. Their rugby team were not, to put
Mm.
it bluntly, right? And that was a English school, and we were the only white people on. The people from our school were the only white people on that uh, facility on that day, right?
Okay.
So it's a difficult subject because it's going to take an effort, and this is where I see the solution. It's going to take an effort from SA Rugby, the Department of Education, and um, all the other government departments that are responsible for building infrastructure and all of that kind of thing to make rugby accessible to more kids, because it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to train people to play rugby. If you just play touch rugby or whatever, and that drip rugby game, even that is is difficult to get going. Most schools in our country don't even have proper ablution facilities at the moment. So it's going to be a big challenge. So I'd like to see people talking to each other at a higher level, and maybe SA Rugby should take the lead on this and say to the Department of Education, can we get some cross sport facilities going at the schools, or can we get schools to share their facilities with surrounding schools? If you've got schools like Potch Gymnasium, can they share their facilities with teams that want to play that are coming from other schools? Just as a random example, in the rural areas, can we have people from Waterkloof sharing their facilities with people that are in Mamelodi and bring them in and get a team going in their league? Who's organizing the leagues? And we'll get to the club rugby now, but that kind of thing. It's really, we're far off from exploiting our potential, and we are a sleeping giant. New Zealand has got 4.5 million people. We've got almost 60 million. It's a crying shame that we have so many people growing up and growing old who will never get a chance to play any sport. Never mind. I mean, we struggle to get our national football team going. So that's my take on the whole transformation thing. It's great that the schools are sort of being forced to recruit athletes from underprivileged areas or from other areas of the country to get their numbers up. But it makes me sad to think of how many kids are out there who could actually be the next Siya Kolisi or the next Marvin Ori or the next Mani Libbok, and they just grow up in a place where they never even see a rugby game because it's all on paid TV. I mean, yeah, that's what I think about. So there's a lot of work to do, but we'll do our part by highlighting what we can in terms of the club rugby scene, in terms of the schools and so on. So we're going to jump right into the Western Province Rugby website, because they are the only ones I could find with club rugby scores and stats. So there you go. That's notch one up for the Western Province. So
looking at the Super League A, which is essentially the the highest division, it's very close at the moment. Helderberg, Hamilton's, Durbell, Union Millies, all within kind of 1 point of each other, with Helderberg just on top, purely by a points difference, ahead of Hamilton's by about 13 points. But it shows that the top is certainly a lot closer. I mean, you have to go really far down to about the 7th division, or that's not the 7th division, rather the 7th team on the list, False Bay, 4 points. You'd really say there's quite a significant gap. Up until then, you've got 1 point all the way to 4th place, and then 5th and 6th are 38 points. So it's good to see that the competition is as close as it is. Good to see the varsities doing well some way, because UCT, the Tigers are doing fantastically well. You've got Marties and UWC who are playing club rugby. Now, I don't know how much of their varsity rugby side will be playing in these club rugby.
It will be the full varsity cup side that plays in the club rugby side. There might be some players that will move over to, like, Stormers, that will play varsity cup and not the Super League A. But with the club rugby, with these club rugby sides, those players will move over to the franchises, and the franchises will move players down to the club rugby sides to get some game time if they're coming back from injury and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go through this log in detail, because really with this podcast, I want to really concentrate on this part of South African rugby that's been neglected for so long. So Super League A, the club at the top is Helderberg, played 12, won 10, lost 2 on 45 points. Hamilton's in second place on the log, played 13, won 8, drawn 2, lost 3, and that's why with the points difference, Helderberg is on top. Hamilton's
With the
also
game
with
in hand
45
as well.
points as well. That's correct, quite correct there. Helderberg has got a game in hand, so they can extend their lead at the top of the table. We'll get to the fixtures in a moment. Durbel in third place, played 12, won 8, drawn 2, lost 2, 44 points on the log. Union Millies played 13. So Durbel has a chance to usurp Hamilton's for the second place spot. Union Millies on 44 points there. Villager Club, they've only played 11, won 8, lost 3. They're on 38 points. UCT, as you mentioned, the Tigers, the Ike Tigers, 11 played, 7 won, 4 lost. They're on 38 points on the log. That's at number 6. And then number 7, False Bay. Played 13, won 6, lost 7, and 34 points on the log. And then we go down number 8, Brackenfell, number 9, Marties, number 10, St. George's, number 11, Kuilsrivier, number 12, Tygerberg, number 13, NTK, number 14, UWC, and number 15, Hamlets. Right, so let's look at the fixtures coming up for the 2023 season. Yeah.
You know, if I'm looking at that UWC side, I have concerns because they're second from the bottom in the club rugby structures. Now, I'm not saying that they've gone as far backwards as Tux, because we saw Tux getting relegated from Varsity Cup.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, as the coach has obviously resigned and then moved on to another school, I think Monas gave them 100 recently. I stand to be corrected. I'm not sure which team, but you know, you banter among players, but he's really not having a good time. And I'm not saying UWC is there, but you don't want your Varsity Cup sides being that far down the club rugby competition table. You'd want them in the top 10. And I'm not saying everybody has to have a perfect season, but for heaven's sake, if you look at the log again, and you can find it on WPC or WPClubRugby.co.za, the UCT side is in 6th. Marty's are in 9th, but they've got multiple games in hand. They've got 4 games in hand. So they could very quickly climb this table, you know, with 4 wins out of 4, they could find themselves. But the UWC side has played 11 and they've only won just the 1 game, presumably against Hamlets, who are 1 point behind. But to be on 7 points or 2, that's a red flag for me.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, I was shocked by Tux's relegation as a Pretoria man. I never went. I never had the privilege of attending that university, but you know, it's their field is just down the road from me, and a lot of my friends went there. But such a proud tradition in club rugby, especially where Tucks were always. I mean, if I think back to the days when I would go to a Currie Cup game at Loftus and see the team sheets of the Blue Bulls and how many players come from the Tucks club. They've always been at the top, and their history in the Varsity Cup is also immaculate. For them to be relegated must be a huge issue at that establishment at the moment. So. Same with UWC now. That's not a good look for them. And I was watching a documentary about the varsity sports in America, where that was the whole idea behind the Varsity Cup, was to add some more prestige to those establishments, to convince people to go there and to pursue their education and a career in professional sports. at those
Yeah.
establishments. So that must be a big shock to the system for the Tuks rugby program. So I'll be watching a lot of Varsity Cup first division matches next year to see if they can get back up. But I like the promotion and relegation system. I love it. I think it's great. I think you shouldn't be guaranteed your spot in any competition. And that's what I like about the URC as well. Um, we can talk a little bit about, uh, well, I said my piece about, the way that the Cheetahs and the Kings were treated, being locked out of these top competitions. The promotion and relegation is important. So that's, that's that. So, UWC need to pull up their socks. There is a Super League B as well, which they can fall into, I would assume. So that will be a huge embarrassment for them. Yeah. And once again, learning about the club rugby system, I'm going to educate myself, and we'll get some people on here that I've got contact with in that club system here in Pretoria, and we'll reach out to some of the teams and see if they want to talk to us and see if we can get some more information. And I'll definitely be sending a couple of these guys some website redesign quotes at least, because the information is so old and the addresses don't exist anymore. I reached out to the Blue Bulls Rugby Union to get the points table for the Carlton League. But those games are probably being finalized this weekend as well. The league's probably also coming to an end. Right. So the fixtures for the Western Province Club Rugby Super League A tonight at 9 o'clock. That game is probably halfway done. They started at 9 o'clock, was UCT against Hamlets. The 26th on Saturday at 4 o'clock, there's a bunch of games kicking off at the same time. It will be Durban against Marties, False Bay against St. George's, Tygerberg against Hamlets, UCT against NTK, UWC against Brackenfell, and Kuilsrivier against Villager. Those are all kicking off at 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. So you're not going to be watching the Springbok games if you're in the areas there. I would love to go and watch that False Bay game. Imagine being next to a rugby field in False Bay at 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. That must be fun.
Spoil for rugby in the Western Cape. Really, you are.
And then also today at 9 o'clock is Marties against Alderbach. So my stepdad
playing a game.
Yeah, so my stepdad is a Tamati, so I'll say good luck to Marties in that game tonight. So if you're listening to this and you are part of the club rugby system in South Africa, please get in touch. I'm at Ozmaster on Twitter, formerly known as Twitter. Let's see, what else have we got here?
People think we're Orlando Pirates supporters with the X.
Yes. Exe. Right, so schools rugby, the Noordval Cup, here part of the Blue Bulls Union, schools rugby, E.G. Jansen against Garfontein in the final. So that we can tell you about. And then you shared this link, which I haven't actually opened yet. Let me just go in there. If I can. We'll see what we can learn here. So once again, we're going to educate ourselves. We're going to educate you, our valuable listeners, about all these lower tiers of rugby. And we've got some fixtures here on the 19th, which is already done. So we need to do some more homework. There's all kinds of rugby competitions going on. I know my kids' school went through. Their first team went through to the final of their division, the Hoërskool die Wilgers. So congratulations to them as well. They did some great stuff there. And as Coach Davis dropped off, I think that's it for us for this first episode. And thank you very much for watching, everybody. I think we're going to end it there. See you soon.